In this video, we're going to cover this cargo basket, which fits on the chassis underneath the cab. So, Thunder Models have provided it as a photo-etch part. This part here is the main part, and then you've got a section here for the rear. So let's have a look at that now. The photo-etch actually has protective plastic on it. I'll just take it all off. I try to keep it on as long as possible. So there's a number of ways to free it from the fret. There's a number of products as well. I did try in the past. I got these Zuron photo-etch snippers or scissors. I never use them. I found the jaws are just too big and clumsy to get into cement. And again, depending on where the photo-etch comes from, sometimes the spaces are very tiny. There's also these little, like a surgical scissor type thing, but they're for photo-etch as well. And I use these a lot for trimming back, which we'll have a look at. But typically, I just use just a craft knife with a number 11 blade. A curved blade and smaller blade is actually handy for rolling onto the tabs, but this is suitable for myself. So you've got a couple of options, and depending on the tabs that connect the part to the fret, it's sometimes possible to either using scissors or a knife to cut it hard against the part. That's possible when the tab has a bit of a recess on it. If they're flush, I prefer to just cut them back well away from the part and then come back in and trim them closer. So we'll cut these off now. With regards to cutting, I see a lot of people just doing it on their cutting mat, coming in with a knife and pressing. I highly recommend you don't do that, purely because depending on the stiffness of your mat, you run the risk of the blade actually pushes the photo-etch down before it actually cuts through the tab, and then that can distort or bend your parts. So what you can do is use a hard surface like a piece of MDF, which isn't going to sink with the pressure. Or what I normally use is this is just a CD. It gives a hard, rigid surface, and it's easy on the blade as well. I've seen people use ceramic tiles and glass. I don't like that because you run the risk, because it's so hard and shiny, the blade slipping and you can damage whatever you're trying to free. So let me just cut these parts out now, and then we'll have a look at cleaning them up. So it's very soft. You get a satisfying click as well when it goes through, and you know you've separated the part. So I just have to get a bit close up. What I'm doing is, like I said, I'm going to cut back quite far from the finished part. See, these ones are quite stiff, which means if you do it in the cutting mat, you really run the risk of distorting the part. There. I'm trying to keep out of the way of the camera, so it's hard to see where they are. So that's the first part. And hopefully you can see I've left considerable tabs on. Now you could now come in again and go up to the part and cut it off, but I'll show you how I do it. And there's this surface here. Normally the photo-etch I've used in the past has been brass. This appears to be, I don't know, it's a strange colour. I don't know if it's a copper or something, but okay, so that's it. Parts cut out. Now, what I tend to do is, rather than come in and trim it again, I'll use these little scissors. So if you put the part hard against one side, you can actually trim off the part and you've got virtually nothing left to clean up. Obviously it depends on the part. So I'll just show you in case you... So you might be able to see still the tabs on that side, and then here I've used the scissors, and because the scissors have got this flat side, if you put that I'm trying to do it off on camera without looking at it. There we go. So it's left tiniest of it. You could probably get away without cleaning that up. But to clean it up, what I use is, or let's go with what I've seen used. So people use files, like a metal file. I recommend you don't, purely because this is a cheap, crappy one, but so you've, particularly with small parts, not so much with a big panel like this, but the rasp or the rough surface of the file can actually grab and you can actually end up damaging the part. This one's quite worn and there's very little left, so you could get away with that. What I suggest is you get the Tamiya photo-etch diamond file, number 400. These are relatively cheap and there's no pressure needed, and that's it, it's gone. You don't have to push or force it down, just use a little pressure and that takes it off. The other alternative to that is like a diamond knife sharpener, I guess. I've used this in the past long before I got this, and it does just a good job. Again, no pressure needed, a couple of swipes and it's gone. Just feel the smallest bit there. That's it. Just in here. Okay. So let me clean up the tabs in this part and then we'll come back. So that's the two pieces, frets or tabs cleaned up. Now, I've only got the one illustration here on how this is supposed to be formed, and to be honest, this seems to be okay, but there's a strange part down here. This detail here will be folded for fixing against the chassis, but I'm not sure how this bottom bit works, so we'll have to take a bit of care on folding it. From what I can tell, that's the base. That will fold up to a side, that will fold up to a side, and then the mesh will come up. And then when this comes up, this can come out. Just this line here, I'm not sure how that works. So once I get the fold started, it should be clearer, and then this will form the back surface. I just want to show quite impressed with this mesh part here. that tab there folds onto the side. It's actually like 3D, so it looks like slats on top of each other rather than one single flat plane with spaces. It seems, I'm trying to get the light, it does look like vertical and horizontal bars or straps, so that's quite good. So what I also want to do is I want to try and solder this just for strength rather than use glue. Now I've done a lot of soldering of wires for the ship models, for hand drills and things, but I've never soldered such a large surface, so that will be the first time. It'll be interesting how we go. What I'm going to use is, I came across this DCC Concepts. They've got the flux and a low melting point solder. This is developed for model railroads for building brass engines and wiring and details and stuff. So my understanding is it should be very good because it's developed for hobbyists for soldering brass and whatnot. So we'll see how it goes. What I will do is, prior to bending, because once I start bending it's going to be difficult to get access, I'm just going to give the parts where solder is going to go, which I'm trying to work out, just a bit of a rub with 1200 wet and dry, and it's just to remove any surface oxidization to promote a good solder joint. So I'm just trying to work out how it gets soldered. So I believe, and then on the back, also noticed, I don't know if you can see, it's slightly cupped, which is a bit strange. It's almost like it's distorted a bit. I'll see when it comes time to fit it up what side I actually use, whether it's in or out. So I might just clean up both sides. Oops, I was just picking it up, so bent it already. So for bending, I don't have Tamiya bending pliers or a hold and fold. I've always just used little, really small bits of photo-etch in the past, and I did get the Tamiya small ones. Obviously they're not going to work here because it's too big. So what I'm just going to have to do is use a knife blade and a ruler and bend it up. I have to try and push this back down without. Also with small bits of photo-etch, you should really try and only bend it at once. If you make a mistake and bend it the other way, you know, after maybe 2-3 bends, it's just going to snap off, which in this case, if it did, would be extra work to fix. So let's see about bending this one in. So like I say, I don't have a hold and fold, so I'll just have to use a ruler. Excuse me while I'm getting close. So this one's got a full line etched in it. I don't know if you can make it out from there. So the bend is on that full line. This side doesn't, so I'll have to see how I'm going to do that side. So if I press that down. Oops. Okay, so that's the first one. I've overbent it slightly, but that's okay. Once I get the other ones and I can see how the back panel fits in, we can tweak this. Okay. So this other side, I've only got a small tab here, which I'm assuming will line up with the surface here. I didn't have a full line, so I'll have to be a bit more careful with that one in alignment. That's pretty much that. So let's have a look. Okay, so that's right. So that small tab there is in line with that other edge, so I can line that up pretty straightforward there. Okay. So that's how it would sit against the vehicle. I'm just trying to work out what to do with this line here. It's just not very clear at all. I've got a feeling that will fold in this way. Well, it definitely does fold in this way, but I don't know what happens here. That must then stay straight. Okay. Let me bend this up here. So I'd have to hold the ruler like that and bend it. I'll do it off camera purely because I can't do it with I can't do it in view with you guys to see, because I have to get close. Okay, so that's that rear section bent round, which kind of makes sense. Of course, just handling it, push the front back up again, which is okay. And these tabs here fold round onto the outside surface, so it's getting very delicate now. So on the back, what I might do is the folds on the sides is maybe not 100% accurate, so this is slightly, the back panel is slightly over long. So I could solder onto the back there or put it in the inside. So I don't know if you can see the two prongs that stick past, they'll fold in. I'm happy with this bend here, it's very close. So I'll see if I can bend this. Okay, so that's that one done. So it kind of locks that. This end here has got a bit of a twist in it. So kind of gets better. Okay, so that's that one there as well. So that's the front kind of locked into position here. So now what I'll do is I'll go off camera and just see the best way to attach this rear, whether I do it on the inside or simply on the back. Okay. So what I've done is I've actually soldered the two tabs. That one not as good as this one, but it's to just hold that and keep it out of the way because it kept flapping in and out. So I did solder that off camera. What I've done is I've kind of fitted this back plate now, and I've just held it in position with some tape, because what I want to do is, rather than try and solder two sides in the bottom, I'm going to solder that inside vertical face, and that will keep everything kind of in place and lined, and then I can work along the bottom and up the other side. So a couple of things here. Using the flux, I'll just paint that on. Oops. To both sides of that vertical face. And then for the solder, it's actually quite thick really. What I'll do is I'll just trim off a couple of parts, a couple of pieces, just place them. I'm not sure how much it will flow, so at the moment it's a bit trial and error. So what I'll do is I'll just place them in the corner, and then as I get more use and experience in using this new stuff, I'll get an idea of just how much to use, you know, without overdoing it. To be honest, that looks a bit much, so what I might do is take one of them out, maybe just half it. Okay, so I just realised I didn't have my soldering iron on, so okay, so for the soldering iron, I just have this large one. The small, more convenient one, I can't get it to work, so I'll use this big one, but that's okay. So what I'll do is I'll heat up the back edge, and hopefully we'll see the solder melt and flow wherever the flux has been. It's certainly heating up the photo-etch, because I can feel the heat on the other side of my fingers. It's not enough to get this to... So I've used a blowtorch like this in the past for some of the railings and whatnot, so let's see if I can use it for this. I have to be very careful with it because this is going to be quite immediate. Yep, there it went. So, let's have a look. Not sure if you can see that flowed almost immediately, only where the flux was. That's still too hot. So I'm not sure if you can see in there, but the solder flowed almost instantaneously. And I don't know if you could see how it zipped along the joint really quickly, and that's where the flux would have been. So you can actually see it's kind of gap filled as well. That wee bit at the back there was 100% touching. So that's actually worked a lot better than me messing about with the soldering iron. The only trouble is how I do the rest of it without getting that to reflow. Well, I don't want it to reflow, so. Okay. And very little cleanup required there. Ideally, I was trying to get the same effect using the soldering iron, because I think it was Paul Budzik, who's a really accomplished modeler. He's got video on photo-etch soldering, and he held it from the back, and it was so easy looking. This was very difficult to get it to flow, and like I say, using the gas torch, how I get the rest of it without affecting previous areas. But what I might do is just do the whole thing and then just hit it, and hopefully that'll work. Okay, so let me set up for the other bits. Okay, apologies, but I've actually finished soldering it off camera. I left the camera running while I was preparing the other parts, and the battery died, so we'll have a quick look anyway. So from the first section, or the first corner, I'd used too much solder, because when it flowed partially along the back, which was okay, and up this side here where it was just a bend, there was no joint, so I was used too much. So for the back, apply the flux, and you can actually almost see 1, 2, 3, 4 little bits of solder that I put in, and that flowed nicely in. I did try again with the soldering iron to try and get it to heat up. It was heating up the photo-etch okay, but it just wasn't enough to get it to flow. So again, I just hit it with the gas torch, and after a couple of seconds it just flowed out. The bits of concern, and not concern, just poor assembly on my part, was this back fold wasn't made enough, so it was away at the top here, so I tried pressing it down, putting some solder at the top just to keep the two parts together. At the back edge you can actually see the little solder blob there. I tried the same and it held, but of course once I came to blast this, it popped out again. So you can see how on the back corner it's pretty much flush, but then you've got a wee step here which corresponds with the gap at the back. So this back panel wasn't held tightly against the thing, but I don't think it was bent fully 90 degrees, or if it was kicked out a wee bit. It won't matter, it fits against the chassis this way, so it's at the back, no one will see it. This high side here fits to the underside of the cab, and then this bracket here fits onto the chassis rail. So it turned out okay. I'm quite happy with it. Like I said, could have did a better job in bending and folding this part here so it was all flush, but this is what it is. Disappointed that the soldering iron didn't work like the Paul Budzik video, where he holds it to the outside the two parts heat up and the solder flows. I think this might be quite thick compared to the photo-etch he was using, so, but I think I need to source a better soldering iron. The ones I've got is pretty cheap, crappy ones, and it's just not up to the job, I don't think. So that's that anyway.